Good evening, everyone. I'm Ralph Peters. I'm glad you're all here. I have a story to tell, and here it goes. I was born and raised in Pipestone, Minnesota, not far from the Winwissa waterfall. Right out of high school, I was drafted. After training with the 84th Infantry, I was sent to Camp Shanks. I arrived in Orangetown on the West Shore Railroad to Camp Shanks. The U.S. Army seized 1,300 acres of tomato patch in Orangeburg, eventually evicting over 100 families. It was the War Powers Act. Affected residents were given 2 weeks to vacate. I was one of over 1.3 million men and women that passed through here on our way to fight Hitler's Nazi Germany. Besides us, there were 290,000 German, Italian, and other POWs processed here. Broadway and Hollywood came to Camp Shanks to entertain us. Jack Benny, Jimmy Durante, Humphrey Bogart, Judy Garland, Benny Goodman, Betty Grable, Pearl Bailey, Ethel Merman. She sang God Bless America as we marched right out of the staging area to the boat train, heading for our ship and overseas. That staging area was Last Stop USA, the last sight of the states we would have seen. The St. Louis Cardinals, the New York Yankees, Brooklyn Dodgers, Boston Red Sox, and Chicago Cubs took on the Shanks teams in exhibition games. In February of 1944, me and over 3,000 men and women attended a dance at the Rockland State Hospital Auditorium, swinging to Lionel Hampton and his band. The big hit of the night was Flying Home, which lasted 22 minutes. There were movie nights, even a Camp Shanks Symphony Orchestra with soloist Oscar Levant. Private Frank Lozier, along with George S. Kaufman and Abe Burrows, wrote our own musical titled About Face. Gee, but it's great to be in the Army. And all the while, it was an around-the-clock staging area for men and women bound for North Africa, England, and the European Theater of Operations. Camp Shanks was surrounded by 4 USOs. I met my wife Peggy at the Tappan USO right over there at the Manse Barn. It operated from 1943 to 1946. She was a hostess there. That first night that I met her, I came right here to the old 76 house for a beer and told my friend Bob that I was going to marry that girl. And I did. I was part of the 109th Field Artillery Battalion, the 84th Infantry Division. That trip over on the Sterling Castle was rough. We were given little booklets to learn French and German. I took French in school, so I was helping others. We disembarked and marched in columns through the city of Liverpool. I was amazed to see so many damaged buildings. My battalion spent 22 days at Camp Lobscombe before crossing over to Omaha Beach in France. We went into combat on November 10th and saw 170 days of fighting. We took part in the Rhineland, the Ardennes, Alsace, and Central European campaigns. Well, I made it, and I made it home, but not everybody did. I came home on the Queen Mary with 15,000 other GIs following the VE Day surrender of Germany on May 8, 1945. We demobilized at Camp Shanks, and I went straight to Peggy's house, right here in Tappan. Some of you here were at our wedding that summer at St. Catherine's, with the reception right in her parents' front parlor. It feels like yesterday. But where were we going to live? Well, on May 3rd, 1946, the War Department announced that Camp Shanks would be converted into housing for GI veterans and their families, while they were students at nearby colleges and universities in the New York metropolitan area. So Camp Shanks became Shanks Village, the largest veteran housing complex in the nation, where this former GI and his family could somehow survive on $120 a month while going to Columbia University. God bless the GI Bill. In November of 1946, we moved in. Jimmy was just 6 months old, and the 2-bedroom unit was $35 per month. At its peak, Shanks Village housed over 3,000 adults and about the same number of children. We carpooled, we put together a grocery co-op, and for $4 per month, your kid could attend the nursery. Margaret Mead was impressed. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote that we were inspiring, and Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander and President of Columbia University, at the time called Shanks Village the best damn place in the world to live. And you know what? For a time it was, until it wasn't. Once the twins came along, we knew it was time to move on. We had come to love Orangetown. Who wouldn't? Am I right? With its history, riverfront villages, farms, and proximity to the city, we were smitten. It's beautiful here. So in 1950, we got together with a group that bought 32 acres of farmland from the McGillicuddy farm in Tappan, right on the New Jersey border. 32 families bought 32 acres and built 32 homes. Chipping in, we bought the land for $800 an acre. We called the place Hickory Hill. I met Dan Tone while he was studying architecture and I was finishing my accounting degree at Columbia. Dan designed the basic house and laid out the development along a winding road through woods and cornfields. We each contributed 1,000 hours of work, clearing land and doing sheeting, roofing, and carpentry, which I like to do best. We felt like American homesteaders working together to raise a barn. After a day's work, I enjoyed a good whiskey sour. The Tappan Zee Bridge was started in 1952. There were several beautiful homes that were demolished to this end before it opened in 1955, along with the New York State Thruway. When the Palisades Interstate Parkway opened in 1958, you could drive from Fort Lee, New Jersey, all the way up to Bear Mountain. There were plenty of people discovering Orangetown now, moving into split-level homes in Prell Park on the site of the old camp and beyond. Our son Jimmy raced in the Pearl River Soapbox Derby. Okay, I did help with the construction of that thing. And the girls visited Mrs. Lucy Geist in Grandview to get their own custom-made Lucy dolls, one blonde and one brunette. You've got to know that we were relieved when the kids got the polio vaccine, and knowing that it was produced right here at Letterly in Pearl River made me proud. Peggy and I attended the fundraising ball that Helen Hayes sponsored at the Rockland State Hospital to support the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, Rockland County March of Dimes. That night, With the Stars featured Catherine Cornell, Carol Channing, Burgess Meredith, and Lillian Gish. Peggy met Betty Frieden at a school board meeting when she was putting together the Community Resources Pool enrichment program for our schools. Betty lived in Grandview, and my wife, who was an accomplished stenographer, was helping Betty to interpret the startling patterns that emerged from her 1957 survey of her Smith College classmates. Who knew that this would result in The Feminine Mystique, often called one of the most important books of the 20th century and the kickoff of the modern women's movement? Me? I was a volunteer at the National Guard Enlistment Center. The evacuation plan in case of nuclear disaster had us heading out on the Palisades. Does that make any sense to you? We drank Coca-Cola, fired up the charcoal grill. We tried to forget the war years and fell in love with Formica and TV. Some of us spoiled our children. Others sent them to St. Catherine's. We collected stamps and matchbook covers, rode Schwinn bikes, played golf and bowled. We burned leaves in the fall, marched in parades, drank cocktails, and set our kids off to take over the world. Those baby boomers. I hope they didn't mess things up. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll see you later at the bar.